Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Boys and
man.
girls, everybody around the world, how y'all doing? Unk and Few, episode 11, season 3. How you doing? Y'all see what we're wearing? Y'all see
Yeah,
what time?
man.
Unk, how you doing, man? Talk to us, brother.
Oh man, I'm doing great. I'm so looking forward to this football game today, man. And I just couldn't get any better, man. Steelers and Ravens. It just doesn't get any better.
Oh man, that's the only way you have to do it, man.
Yeah,
Steelers
man.
and Ravens. We're gonna get into it because we really got to get into it. What are you wearing tonight, man? Today I'm wearing Ed Reed. I need our secondary to do something, man. I'm wearing
Dude,
my Ed Reed jersey. What you got? Yes,
bus, the
the
bus,
bus.
Bettis. Yeah, man.
Jerome Bettis, man. He used to destroy us, man. Don't he gives me nightmares.
Yeah, man. Well, that's we're going to be talking about these things today, man. Like Steelers and Ravens have actual brands of play, man. And Jerome Bettis is definitely the man, right? I mean, it's all about running downhill, right? Steelers love to do that. Steelers can't get anything done unless they got a running game in place, right? And that was the
Oh,
bus.
that's a fact, man. And the fact remains is that this will decide, brother, who
Mm-hmm.
leads the AFC North because
Yeah.
our both teams have 7 wins. Ravens have 3 losses. Steelers have 2. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the first divisional game, I believe, for the Steelers. Am I right? Or am I wrong about that?
This
Is
is the
this the
first
first
divisional
divisional game?
game. This is the
All
first
right.
divisional game. We're getting into the black and blue schedule in November and December. We're going to start playing everybody. I think but you guys have played, I think, the Cincinnati once, and I think we played Cincinnati. Um, we're getting into it. I think there are like 6 divisional games over the course of the rest of the season, maybe 5, and 2 of them are with the Ravens, the Steelers, right? So it's going to be amazing.
It's gonna be absolutely fantastic, man. And if everybody's here, like the video, we are not doing no minutes restrictions, man. We are going in tonight, this morning. We are going all the way in, man. And you know what? We have to go in about this guy and this team, man. This team is a team that quietly has been coming. And when I say quietly coming, I'm saying
Yeah.
about a team that I kind of saw coming and I kind of did it. Namely, with their I'm calling him an MVP, quality player. It's Mr. Saquon Barkley, man. The
Yeah, man.
Eagles 7-2 and hurdling people. Jalen Hurts, they're saying that he could go for like 20-20, meaning like 20 passing touchdowns, 20 rushing touchdowns. And
Right.
this guy is solid in that MVP conversation with Lamar, Josh Allen, and Derrick Henry, man. What
Yeah.
the hell is going on, Unc? Talk to us about this Eagles team that is just spanking guys.
Well, I mean, it didn't start out like that. I think they started out 0-2. There
Mhm.
was, earlier on in the season, we were like talking about how, the Commanders were an outstanding team and a surprise, and that like that the rest of the division looked like ass cheeks, man, including the Eagles. Like the Eagles didn't look that
That's
great
right.
at first either, but the jury was still out a little bit on that, right? Um,
Mhm.
and what's happened subsequently over the last month, at least, if not the last 6 weeks, is that the defense has come on really strong and they've got a solid running game. So, yeah,
Yes.
Philadelphia is playing kind of like how Baltimore is right now, but with better defense. I mean,
Yeah.
quite honestly, right? Like, like Detroit needs to watch out, right? Because Philly's coming and Philly's coming hard right now. Their defense is outstanding. They
Yeah.
came out of their bye week with a night and day difference. In fact, I'll give you the stats right here, right? Before their bye
Mhm.
week, in the fifth or sixth week 6 was their bye week. But before that, they had allowed 29 points, 22 points, 12, and 33 points over the course of those 5 games. Coming out of the break, they've allowed 10 points, 3, 17, 17, 6, and 18. So, in other words, they're not letting anybody score 20 points a game, and in fact, frequently less. And they're
Yeah.
doing it by locking down the time of possession with Barkley, right?
Mhm.
I mean, what they do in the second half versus what they do in the first half is really stunning. In fact, Jasmine was hollering at me on a Thursday night football with the Philly game against the
Nice.
Commanders, right? Because, she and all her friends, everybody knows, well, your age group, right? They're all familiar with Jaden Daniels. They're all into what he's doing this year, right? So,
Yes,
they were
sir.
sitting there. They were sitting there watching, expecting Jaden Daniels to, have a great night and be explosive and do all the things that he does. And when I
Mhm.
saw Saquon rip off, I think it was just into the third quarter, and I saw Saquon just rip off this one run. And I said
Yeah.
to Jazz, and I said, if this keeps going on, Philly's gonna win. There's no getting around it, right? And her girlfriend was like all upset when she saw what Saquon did in the second half. But that's what like premier alpha running backs do, right? They wear you down in the second half of the game. They just keep punching the defensive line in the mouth until they've had enough, right? And usually what happens with this, and this is what we've been talking about, is going on this year in the NFL with running backs, is
Mm.
that while we've been out there paying $30 million a year for these running backs or for these wide receivers that are getting these explosive plays of 25, 30 yards couple three times a game, or less, right? And what we're seeing is that guys like Derrick Henry and Saquon for $8 to $13 million a year can bust off 25 or 30 yards with an
Oh
explosive
yeah.
run as they
Oh
continue to just keep wearing down the opposing defensive line. So we're
yeah.
seeing
Mhm.
that with both Henry and Saquon, where at least once a game, like a wide receiver, they pop off an explosive play, either
Yes.
for a touchdown or taking you from the your own 35-yard line. All of a sudden, you're on you're in field goal range. Boom, just like that. That's what
Mhm.
running backs are able to do this year because
Mhm.
as defenses have spent all this time locking down wide receivers, so somebody like Justin Jefferson doesn't like blow them up all game
Yeah.
long, or like Jamar Chase did the other day.
Mhm.
So what they've been doing is making, well, most teams, maybe not the Ravens, but most teams have been making their cornerbacks better and their safeties and their secondary better, and they've been sort of letting the interior linebackers and the middle linebackers and whatnot, they haven't been putting quite as much emphasis on that, and the running backs are
Yes.
starting to show out, man. And yeah, we're seeing that. I love it, man. Saquon, Derrick Henry. I mean, Najee's not as good as those guys, but at least there's somebody on my team doing that. I need to see like 125 yards a game rushing. I need to see it, man. Right, and
And
it's
man,
what allows.
let me give you guys some credit, man. Once Russ came in the lineup, Najee and that running game actually improved because the
Jalen
threat of the
Warren.
ball going
Yep.
down the field forced the linebackers to be more so in coverage. And guess what that
Yeah.
opens up? The
Yeah, man.
lane.
It's
The lane. So that's something I'm scared of tonight or
yeah,
today.
dude.
Because if I
You
think this
need to be
Najee Harris
scared,
run, his
dude.
past three games have been some of his best runs as a Steeler. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's what's happening. All teams are going out on defense, especially the secondaries, the back end, and they forget the middle and the front
that's
end of
it.
the defensive
And
line.
the running
Because
backs.
Saquon has pass.
No, and just yeah, so the running backs are starting to show out a bit, right? This is how it always goes in the NFL, right? It's tit for tat, right? As you get good at one thing, somebody takes advantage of the other thing that you stop focusing on quite as much, right? So that's what's going on in Philly right now, man. They got an all-star running back, right? But
Mhm.
Derrick Henry, even before today's game, Derrick Henry has played one less game than Barkley, and Henry's still at
Mm.
and Henry's still ahead. So Henry's on his
Yeah.
way. Henry's on his way to like 1,900 plus yards. Barkley's heading for about 1,800 plus yards. But man, dude, when was the last time we had like two running backs that were both like
Yeah.
charging towards 2,000? That's amazing. That's awesome.
This like early 2000s football, bro. Because you look at
It
Derrick
is.
Henry and Saquon, they're trending towards maybe not 2000, but damn near close to 2000. And having
Well,
two running backs underpaid, and both they were left by their old team. You know what
but
I mean? Look at the Giants right now.
yeah,
Horrible. Look at the Tennessee Titans. Horrible.
Well, I mean, when I look at what the Steelers are doing right now, I mean, my God, the Steelers look like they're going so far back. They look like they're going back to the 70s for crying out loud. You got two alpha wide receivers and a running
Yeah.
back and a quarterback. Like and then a defense that just like, just tears it up all game long. Like I swear to God, dude, like that was the 79, the post 1978 rule change with the wide receivers that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Like
Yeah.
seriously, the 79-80 Steelers remind me
Mhm.
of this Steelers team right now. I'm not even lying.
I like that, man. You know what I mean? And when we look at literally what the, NFC East, and we were locked into the Commanders, and we're not going away from that. I'm not going away from that personally, but I think we kind of got caught up in a little bit of the hype because they're in a little bit of a skid right now. But I'm telling
Mm-hmm.
you right now, I didn't see this Eagles defense being this good. And like you said, man, you're talking about the defense and the running game playing complementary football,
Yeah.
and that's leading them to winning a lot of games. And you know what? We have to understand this. Let's make sure that our boy Sleepy Euphoria is not here to listen to what I'm going to say next about his team, the Dallas Cowgirls.
What a
Dallas
train wreck.
Cowgirls. Oh my lord, Unc. This is the exact opposite of what Philly's doing.
Yeah.
We gotta go in on the Dallas Cowboys, man, as we talk about, week 10 football. What did you think of that horrible performance now that they had? I believe this was against the Eagles. Well, it was against the Eagles, yeah,
Yeah.
34-6 last Sunday. Man, night and day, brother. How do you look at it? What is the state of the Dallas Cowgirls?
Well, I mean, yeah, Dallas. I mean, we talked about this, from the very beginning of the year. We talked about it during the off season when we texted and whatnot, contacted each other about, the trades and everything. And we've been saying all along that Dallas, doesn't really look like a serious team, that they're not really making the moves that people would anticipate them to make. And of course, all of that's on Jerry Jones, right? So we've talked about this at length that Dallas is just like a scrub team, like from the top to the bottom. They don't have the skill players that they need. They didn't make any changes in coaching. After it was obvious that the system that they had wasn't really working. And they've had terrible injuries. To some very very severe players, right? From Dak Prescott. I mean, obviously that's your franchise quarterback, but also Demarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons have also been out, and we saw what an incredible difference that made when they came back. Like my goodness. So yeah, the way it is with Dallas right now, like you can just run all over them. Their defensive line is just no good, right?
No.
They're about halfway. They're about midway when it comes to the pass defense, right? So, but when it comes to the points in fantasy that they give up to quarterbacks, it's like fourth most in the league. The points that they give up to running backs, again, fourth most in the league, right? So what's killing them are people with legs who are running against them. Right? So that's the biggest problem. And yeah, so their defense isn't good, and now their offense is just terrible. They have no skill players. I mean, outside of CD Lamb, they don't really have anybody.
And if you think about it, man, CD had this complaint, and it's a valid one, where I think Cooper Rush was passing him the ball, there was light in front of his face, and then he said that in a post game, and then
Yeah,
Jerry Jones is like, "What do you want me to do? Tear down the whole stadium?" Jerry, shut up, like, come on, man. And you know what? It's not even a bad excuse, but at the same time, bruh, that's how much dysfunction is on that football team.
it
Communications on the wrong
like
way. And then Michael Parsons dogs out his coach, Mike McCarthy, saying,
yeah,
"Oh, I want to do it for the vets." Are you stupid? This is the same coach who's
yeah,
given you 12 and 4 seasons, like 3 or 4 years in a row, and you guys have not capitalized on it, have not done
yeah.
anything.
It's
And now you're
it
dogging out your coach who won a Super Bowl ring before you even got in the league or sniffed. Oh
yeah.
my god, it was so bad, brother. Such
And
dysfunction.
Well, and it is dysfunctional. And again, like we talked about it last week, when we talked about Jerry Jones. Like, Jerry, what is Jerry Jones doing on the radio? Like, why is Jerry Jones your
Right.
spokesperson for the team and all that type of thing, right? Because it makes him look like a clown. It makes him look undignified. And he's also saying things that are simply like just unprofessional. For the team, things that don't help the team. So yeah, you're getting to the point where it's not just fun in Jerry world for Jerry to go and talk to the base and all that type of stuff. It's at a point now where it's hurting the team.
Yeah.
Um, like
Yeah.
it is, it's hurting the team. And so, anyways, yeah, he's not capable anymore of doing this type of thing. And that's why they continue to plummet down to the bottom. And Philly, on the other hand, is rising, right? Because Philly actually has professionals running the team. And we're starting to see it now. We're really starting to see where Denver is seriously imploding and looking like clown shoes because they haven't done the things that they need to do, right? Nothing happened at the trade deadline. Well, they got this
No.
Mingo fellow. Like, give me a break. Right? Like just and I think they gave like a fourth round pick or something stupid like that. But anyways, the whole point is that he's not going to help. And so he didn't do anything at the trade deadline, hasn't done anything prior to the trade deadline, didn't do anything in the offseason or the preseason. Like Jerry seems to be of the mind that things are fine the way they are. And if we can just play better, things will be better. And like, my goodness, that's delusional. That's delusional.
Straight up. Straight up delusion, man. And this reminds me, I'm gonna take a little detour of the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight.
Oh my God.
Delusional, man. You
Oh
are
my
a
God.
58-year-old man. You cannot do it. Jerry Jones, you are an 80-plus-year-old GM who has lost since the 90s. You can't
Yep.
do it no more, man. Past your
Well,
prime, you can't do it.
yeah. I mean, Jerry is like
Oh,
to me again. I'll always go back to the day, right? I'll always go back to the day when, you know, when he fired his coach way back when, right? Like, why would you have done that? Like, that was your friend, that was your buddy. You went to school with the guy, right? Like, he
yeah.
was the rich kid. Buddy was the sort of the poor kid with skill, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
he didn't understand the peanut butter and jelly sandwich that made up. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so this didn't just happen the other day. Jerry Jones has always been a moron. So
Yeah. And you know what? It comes back to the hubris and arrogance and cockiness where you're like, bruh, sometimes let me tell you this, man. You know why this podcast works? Because I know Unc is a cooker. I respect him. I
yeah,
see how
man.
great he is as a football mind. And I sit in the back corner and I let him cook. You have to fit in where you fit
Yeah,
in,
dude.
bro. And you have to understand your role in any kind of relationship.
That's
And
it.
that's the problem with Jerry. He does not understand his role and he's overinflated and he doesn't get it. And that's going to be, I believe, one of his biggest downfalls because, bruh, if you want to be great and do great things, you have to understand the process and know where you fit in. And that's the fact. By the way, shout out to
Jimmy,
Rob,
look,
my boy
man.
Rob in the chat. You know what
Jimmy,
I
he,
mean? Mm.
he and Jimmy as a team together, they like Jimmy could still be the coach right now. Well, maybe 10 years ago, but like they could have had a 20-year run, the two guys.
Oh,
But
yes. Oh,
but
yes.
Jerry
Oh, yes.
Jerry decided that he had to be the guy. So just
Crazy,
narcissism.
man. That
Yeah.
narcissism, but you know what? This is what I like about both of our teams. We have owners who stay in the back, who
Okay.
stay in the back. You know what I mean? And leave our coaches alone. They leave our GMs alone, and that leads me to talk about the Steelers versus the Washington
Yeah, dude.
Commanders. You got to talk about it. How do you feel about it? By the way, shout out to Rob in the chat who said the most wild complaint starts when your team plays hot garbage. Yeah, he's talking about the Cowboys. That's a
Sure
fact.
enough.
That's Jerry
Sure
world.
enough. Oh my
Um,
goodness. Yeah.
Tell me
Well,
about that fantastic Commanders game.
oh geez, dude. Like the Steelers were just amazing. What can I tell you? Their defense just keeps going on with it. Russell Wilson just shows so much better offense.
Oh yeah.
Mike Williams and George Pickens. I mean, everybody kept asking why did they do like why Mike Williams and whatnot. And I was just saying, like, you saw it right there. It's like Stallworth. It's like Stallworth and sorry, like it's like the Steelers back in the late '70s. It's like Swan and Stallworth, right? You got two. The one skill that the Steelers have is going long, going deep, and Russell could put it in there, right? So they went and got a second guy like that, and you saw how it went. You saw how it went. Like he's just putting it up there, and he's letting Williams and Pickens just go get it. Just go find it. And that's how it used to be with Swan and Stallworth back in the late 70s. And, Terry Bradshaw, the only thing he could really do well is throw it way down the field. And, so that's what we're seeing here with the Steelers. And that's what we saw against the Commanders. So, yeah, it was an extremely exciting game. Fantastic game to watch. But as you saw out there, Jaden Daniels, those ribs hurt. He has not fully recovered from that. And you can see he was tentative. You can see You can see the Steelers getting at him. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all.
It wasn't easy. And if you see, this is a matchup. It felt like a playoff game, man, down to the wire. And you see, it really showed the difference between a guy like Russ and a guy like Aaron Rodgers, man. You know what I mean? You look at a team so dysfunctional like the Jets, they can do anything with Mike Williams. You know what I mean?
Yep.
First game that Mike Williams comes into the Steelers, impact player, touchdown to win the
Oh
game.
man, that was
About
amazing, right?
organization. That's about quarterback play, brother. Yeah.
That was amazing. Let me give a quick super shout out to my son Kareem. He's joined us. Here. He's watching the game, so we'll look for him as watching the podcast here. So we'll look for him as we go along. He's got a big game today. But anyways, that was a fantastic game. I didn't red zone it at all when the Steelers were on playing the Commanders because I knew that was just going to be an awesome game. It was just going to be so good, and it was like, oh my god.
Hey man, I'm telling you, that's what's gonna happen today, man. We're going down to the wire, man. The best rivalry in sports: Ravens versus Steelers, man. We gotta go in, and you know what? We got to go in the right way, meaning we got to go with our lines and spreads. By the way, shout out to Kareem in the chat. Salute, brother. KP.
Right. Well, now, do you want to? All right. Do you want to go to the lines and spreads? Okay. I know we're gonna go to Steelers. I know we're gonna do a big thing on Steelers and Ravens today. So okay. So that was just a sideline over to the Commanders, Steelers. All right. So you want to go to lines and spreads now?
Discussion. Lines and spreads. Which games are you looking at that you really like? Obviously, we're going to talk about the big game a bit later. You know what I mean? What for you? What do you see that's interesting? I'm seeing here Packers versus Bears. Something might happen. I'm seeing some things here about let's say, not too many great matchups. Maybe Seahawks 49ers.
Yep.
Which game do you see? Have you circled around and said, I'm gonna rock with this game?
Well, this one, like the Detroit Jaguars game, is oh my god, like because it's just like it's a huge spread, 13 and a half point spread, 14 now, right? 14 because everybody thinks the Jaguars are going to get killed today, and probably they are. Yeah. But 14 points, right? Because Jacksonville, despite Jacksonville being a terrible team, Jacksonville is 6-4 against the spread. Detroit's 7-2. So there's no obvious thing there, like just your ATS record alone, right? So you got to take a look at the numbers. You got to take a look at that Jacksonville and Detroit, right? So I have that system where I sort of like take a look at the points for, points against, take a look at the point spread and see if it adds up, right? Well, Jacksonville scores 6 points less than they have scored against them, right? They allow about 26 points a game. And Detroit, on the other hand, allows about 19 points a game. So that's below average. That's well below the league average, which is about 21 points a game is scored against most teams. But Detroit scores 31 and a half points a game, right?
Ooh.
So their difference is 12 and a half points. Jacksonville's is 6 points in the negative, right? So it should be 18. Like the point difference between the two teams on a per game basis is almost 19 points, right? So obvious, right? 14 points, right? Easy point spread. That's what the math says. That's certainly what the math says. And it says take the over on it as well. But like my only point on all this is just that with Jacksonville being 6-4, seeing how they played against Green Bay, like Detroit, I'm sure is going to win in a blowout, right? They're playing at home as well too, but it's just a big point spread. So I'm not sure, man. Like in the end, I think I'm going to take Detroit just because they seem like they're on an incredible year. Yeah. And I'm going to be nervous, right? I'm going to take the over, but I'm nervous. I really believe that Jacksonville could probably cover that. Right?
Oh, that's possible too, man. That's possible.
I really do think that, and that's why I picked that game to show here, because this is a really difficult one. It looks like it should be easy, but let me tell you, any point spread over 10 points is a little humana, right? It's a little nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah, you have to watch those type of spreads. Yeah. But at the same time, you have Mac Jones under center this year. Well, today. So what happens. You know what I mean?
So it looks like it should be terrible, right? But look what happened with Minnesota last week. The Minnesota-Jacksonville game was that was ridiculous. They picked off Donaldson, three times?
Three times, yep.
Right? And we saw Jared Goff throw how many picks last week? 4?
5.
5, right? So Goff probably won't do that again. So, like, I don't know. But for the record, just because, this is a show, it's a podcast, why are we watching this if it's not for something extraordinary? I'm going to take Jacksonville on this. I'm going to take Jacksonville against Detroit at home with the over, just because it's the NFL. Now,
I like it.
Right? Now, there's some other interesting ones here too, right? The Jets. Playing Indy. Indy's traveling to New York. And again, Indy's got that great against the spread type of thing, right? And when I look at their points for and points against when it comes to Indy, and I've got Indy at they've got an advantage, a 2-point advantage per game of 2.5 points, 2.2 points.
Oh,
so that seems to me, that seems to be like even though the Jets are at home, I think Indy covers the spread there. And also with the over.
Let's 43.5. Okay.
Yeah. Now,
you know what? I actually agree with you on that because the Jets are in free fall right now, man.
Yeah.
Meaning that the Colts could have some action because Anthony Richardson's coming back. They put him back as starter. I think the run game. If you're on fantasy, Taylor is going to be that lead back.
Yeah.
I think they're going to run that ball down their throats. Yeah.
Taylor and Richardson might both go. Taylor and Richardson both might go for 100 yards rushing today.
Straight up.
Right?
So lock. I think that's a fantasy lock, man. So what else are you looking at, brother?
Cincinnati at the Chargers is going to be an incredible game today. Because we saw how Cincinnati played against the Ravens last week, right?
Yes.
So you've got strength versus strength here. You've got Cincinnati with an incredible ability to score. And then you got the Chargers who have like the lowest points per game scored all year, right, in the defense. So you're talking about strength versus strength. Now, Cincinnati started off as a 2-point favorite, even on the road. And the line has moved now to 1.5. What do you got on there? 1.5 points for the Chargers now, right?
Vegas Insider, it's 1.5 for Vegas. The over under is 48. I would personally, I'd go over, but definitely. This is a hard one to pick.
Yeah, it is.
It's just so hard because I can see Chargers cover it. I can see them not. I can see the Bengals.
Well, can they keep up?
Somehow make it happen.
Exactly. Like if Joe Burrow quiet as it's kept, Joe Burrow is playing the best quarterback of his
Fantastic.
career,
Yes,
right?
he is. Yes, he is.
And so the question again is, can the Chargers score enough points to outscore them, right?
Mhm.
Even if their defense is on point, right? There's like Cincinnati. If Cincinnati had a down game, right, offensively, that would be what,
Mhm.
24 points instead of 45, right?
That's a down game for them. I know that's
Right.
crazy,
So
right?
can the Chargers score 24 points the way they've been playing, right? They're looking better these days. Herbert's looking a lot better these days. But let me give you the actual numbers on that, right?
Yeah.
Because the Chargers score less than 21 points a game. Cincinnati scores 27 points a game, but they also allow 26.2 points a game.
Yeah.
Now, and so this game is actually kind of like the Steelers and the Ravens game, to be honest with you. Like a really solid defense
Whoa.
against an explosive offensive team that has no defense. So it's kind of the same game, right? So the Chargers are plus 7.6. Steelers are plus 7.7 in the points differential, like points scored versus points against. And Cincinnati's about just under 1 point plus. At least they're positive, right? So that means
Right.
that the Chargers should be favored by anything over 6 points, right? When you
Yeah.
subtract the two numbers, right? And they're at
Right.
home. So that makes sense, right? But
Hmm.
Joe Burrow. But Joe
Oh,
Burrow, right?
Joe. He's
Yeah.
going crazy.
So anyways, that's why the point spread's only 1.5, not like 6. Right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take the Chargers at 1.5 and the over. Definitely the over.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I definitely was feeling the over. You've convinced me, man. I'm leaning down to the Chargers now because that run game, I think that could dismantle the Bengals unless they,
Yep.
who knows? Joe Burrow might go insane for 5 more touchdowns, and then we might have to deal with that. But we got to talk about one game that I
That's
think a
just
lot
it.
of people are going to circle on their calendar. The big one, man. Not us, but the other
Hmm.
big one, the Chiefs versus the Bills. They have them 2.5. I think the Chiefs are
Oh
traveling
yeah.
to Buffalo. The big one, man. Maybe a
Yeah.
playoff previews. We're talking about the Buffalo Bills facing the Chiefs. Right now, it's 2.5, leaning towards Buffalo. Over under is 46. I'm going under, and I think the Chiefs come in. In whatever that stadium is, and put another masterclass
They're going to
lesson.
Buffalo.
Home. They're going to Buffalo. I think the
Uh,
Chiefs win this, but I'll take the under on the 46 points. What do you think, Rich?
right, right. Well, this is like a wild game. So it's at 2.5 now, right?
Two and a
The
half have
game
moved, I think. Yeah. Hmm.
the game started out as Buffalo being a 1 point favorite.
Yeah.
So the
1 point.
betters
Yeah.
are the betters keep throwing the money at Buffalo,
Yeah. They're
right?
moving it. Hmm.
Okay. And KC's 5-4 against the spread, and Buffalo's
Yeah.
6-4 against the spread. So there's no real automatic advantage one way or the other as to how they play these games, no matter what the point spread. But let me give you the numbers and tell you where this is going, because this is a really difficult game given how the Chiefs have played this season. Right.
Right.
So Buffalo scores about 10 points more than they have scored against them. Right. It's significant. Right. 9.7. It's got probably the biggest number outside of Detroit's. Right. And
Right.
KC, on the other hand, they've got a positive number, of course, as well, too, right? But it's only 6.4, right? So
Yeah.
Buffalo should be favored by 3.5 points, 3.3 points, right?
Mhm.
According to the numbers here, right? So you would think that point spread, especially at home for Buffalo, makes sense, right? And
Yeah.
also, too, right? They both score like combined 54 points. So, they should definitely take the over under on that, right? Take the over on that. But the
Mhm.
question is what are you going to do about the Chiefs being 9-0? What are you going to do about the Chiefs? Like, remember we talked about the Chiefs being like a closer? Right now,
Yes.
Mahomes being like a baseball closer. And you see what happened last
Yeah.
week? Like, even last week, like, even a
The
closer has
block
bad
punt,
days.
the block field goal, bro.
Right? Even a closer, even Mariano Rivera usually has at least 1 or 2 losses a year where everything goes wrong, right? Where
Right.
because that's what happened, right? That's what happened. The
Oh yeah.
Chiefs, the Chiefs, the Chiefs, like the bases were loaded basically on the reliever. Like
Yep.
Mahomes
Yep.
came in there, bases were loaded. They were ahead by 1 run type of thing. And
Yep.
instead of like Mahomes, like throwing heat and pitch, throwing pitches and striking out the last guy, instead the
Right.
guy popped up.
Yep.
Instead, like the other team popped up on the warning track, and that's how Mahomes got it this time. You know what I mean? But it's like that. It's like that as a closer. And like I heard a
Crazy.
couple of analysts talking about KC this week about how what it is that they really do well is
Yeah.
that they make changes. What they do more than
Oh
anything
yeah.
is that between
Oh,
Mahomes, um,
Andy Reid. Yeah.
Spagnola, right, and Andy Reid, those
Mm.
three guys can figure out how to make the fourth quarter work if they're behind.
Oh yes. Oh
Like
yes. The fourth quarter is a different game for them. Yep.
their
It's a different game.
ability, and also, have you seen their completion percentage on third downs? Leads the league by huge amounts.
Oh
So,
yes. Oh
so
yes.
what
Oh yeah.
So what the Chiefs are doing more than anything is that they're
Mm.
making the changes on the go that they need to make and then execute like nobody else does. So
Oh
let me
yeah.
tell you, even though the Bills are at home, even though the numbers are in the Bills' favor, until I see somebody actually beat the Chiefs, I'm taking the Chiefs.
Oh, absolutely. That's an amazing take, and that's facts. A lot of people, including you and me, are gonna make money off this because the money is gonna go towards Buffalo. You have to
Yeah,
go the
well,
other way.
you
The
see it's
Chiefs
going to
find
Buffalo.
ways to win. Oh
You
yeah.
see the
Oh
money
yeah, it's
going to
going to Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Yup,
Yeah,
yup.
you
And that's
see
a
the money
trap
going.
because the
And
trap
they
is the Chiefs win. Yeah.
And they have every reason. It has the money has every reason to go there. I just showed you the case. I just showed you the numbers. Buffalo should win this game, especially at home. But until I until I see the Chiefs lose, I ain't taking it.
That's a
So yeah,
great point,
you
brother.
might
And
make
trust me.
big money betting on the Chiefs today.
And you know what? Rob is one of our betters too, man. Me and him text throughout the week. He's looking at Steelers +3. He
Right?
says Lions win by 20, so I think
But
he's taking
they
the
might.
over. Yeah, and he's disagreeing with us. He's saying the Bills cover and win. So
Yeah.
he's going against us. He's got
Oh
Bengals
yeah.
one and a half,
Bengals, Falcons. Yeah, yeah. He's
Falcons
going against almost
+3.
all my picks.
He's
All
going
right,
and
Roberto.
y'all are battling this weekend, bro.
Yeah, man.
You know what?
Because Denver at
Mm.
home by 2 points. Nah, dude.
Mm.
Denver's winning that game.
Let's look at it, brother. What do you think about the Falcons versus Denver Broncos? And
Okay.
I'll say this. The Broncos, out of all these teams out here, they've surprised me the most this season, meaning that their improvement, meaning what they've been able to do. They are in games, other than the Ravens game that happened earlier. They are in games, and I'm telling you something. They're 5-5 right now. They're a sneaky wild card team that could show pop up its head. And
Yep.
I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised by this kid, Bo Nix. He's not even a kid. He's a grown man. He's old as hell.
Yep.
But you know what I mean.
Yep.
I like what they're doing. They were supposed to win that game versus the Chiefs. It was not supposed to be a win for the Chiefs.
That's
But like
right.
we said, Chiefs find a way. Shout out to the Broncos, and we know how the Falcons are. What do you feel about this game? Over under 45 points. They
Right.
got the Broncos favored by 1.5. Let's go.
I would take the under on that. I would take the under on that. The two of them combined, just using basic numbers, the two of them, Denver and Atlanta, only score combined about they score under about 43 points a game, 43 and change. So I've taken the under on that one. But the other thing too, Atlanta's one of those teams. They're basically neutral, right? They have as many points scored against them as they score, and they score about 24 points a game. Denver scores about 20 points a game. Denver is +2, right? So according to these numbers, right, the point spread shouldn't be over like 1.5, right? So Roberto is actually right according to the numbers, but I'm still taking when it's this close. I'm taking Denver. Denver, their line against the spread is like 7-3 against the spread. Atlanta's 5 and
Oh,
5. Give me the home team.
nice, nice, nice. And you know what? we would be remiss if we didn't talk about what we came here to talk about. You know what I mean?
Oh,
We
ho,
have to talk
ho.
about what we came here to talk about. Steelers versus Ravens, the game of the year. I'm not saying
The
maybe not
week.
game of the year. I
We'll
might be
call it the
using that
week.
carefully, but it's gonna be a big time game of the week. We got Ravens favored by a field goal. If Justin Tucker's kicking it, it's a little wishy washy. We gotta watch that. 48 points over under. I'm gonna say my piece, man. You already know what time it is, Dougie.
Yeah,
Y'all
dude.
know what time it is. I got my Ravens, but I will go with the over, meaning I think this is going to be a 30 something game. I think it's going to come down to the last play. I think we might even touch overtime. So I do they make the spread? I don't know about that, but I'm definitely taking the over. Do the Ravens cover the spread? I'll go with yes. I'll go with yes. It's going to be a 1 point type of deal. Go ahead.
Right.
What do you
Okay.
think?
So it's
Mm,
all right. So
mm.
they're at 3 points right now and 48.
There are 3 points and then 48. Yes, sir.
All right. So we touched about this briefly a little bit earlier when we were talking about Steelers Ravens. So yeah, Steelers score about 24 points a game. They have about 16 points scored against them, so they're plus 7.7.
Mm,
So the Ravens they score almost 32 points a game, but they have 25 points a game scored against them, so they're plus 6.5. So
yeah.
right off the top, that implies a Steelers point spread that would be appropriate. About one plus points would be appropriate.
Mm,
So yeah, yes, but that's probably why the point spread in Baltimore's gone from 3.5 down to 3.
mm,
So there's a bit of a point spread imbalance there, right? So everything tells us that the point spread says that the Ravens should win this, by more than 3 points. But the numbers are
mm.
saying that the Steelers play good enough defense and score enough points that they might actually beat the Ravens by, says according to this, 1 point. We'll see.
Mm,
The
mm,
strengths of the Ravens is an offense that is just simply explosive. There's no getting around it.
yeah.
They're not like Lamar is not putting up interceptions at all. The guy's on pace to over 40 touchdowns. I mean, crazy. And probably at least another 500 yards of running.
Yeah.
So they've got an explosive, balanced offense. The Steelers have the same offense, and we'll get into this when we talk about the two franchises, the rivalry. But they both play the same kind of game, right?
Yes, they
Run
do.
first, run first. Normally solid defense, but that's
I
that's
know.
that's the
Don't
brand, right?
remind me, bro. Don't remind me.
Right. So, so they've got a similar offensive strategy, more traditional and mundane, but it is balanced, right?
Yeah.
But the defense is awesome. They're only allowing 16 points a game. The weaknesses on the
Mm,
Steelers is a lack of explosiveness and creativity versus what the Ravens are doing. So that needs to be said. Also, the mobility at quarterback and offensive line are not nearly what the Ravens have. So there's weakness there at the Steelers versus what the Ravens are doing. Now, the
mm,
Ravens' secondary has been extremely porous. We've talked about that at length.
yeah.
Their rushing defense has been acceptable, right? They're about middle of the league. But the points per game on defense is absolutely atrocious. 25.
Really bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's bad. So, with all that
Uh,
being said, what the main question here is: can the Steelers contain Lamar Jackson? That's the big one
no.
here, right? That's
Yes.
the big thing. Can they stop? Can they stop the that explosive offense? And can the container? Can the Ravens contain Russell Wilson and his new
Oh
offense?
yes. Oh
Right. So
yes.
that's the big question right there. Can they each contain each other's offenses? Um,
Mm,
so let's take a look at it here, right? So the Steelers fantasy can sometimes be instructive about how the defense is doing and how they play against certain types of offense. Um,
yeah.
for the Steelers, for tight end, running back, and wide receiver, they're in the top 10 versus the position.
Mm,
For quarterback, they're third versus quarterback against the position. So they're very good
oh
against the quarterback, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in their defense and special teams, again, they're in the top 10 versus the amount of points that they give up. So they're a top 10 defense. For Baltimore, their running back, they're seventh best against the running back for their defense. For their wide receiver and for quarterback, like top, like they give up more points than any other team.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
right. So that, yeah. And so, but their defense and special teams, surprisingly, is number one in the league as far as giving up points to another team. Right.
Yeah,
So, how does that happen? Right. Well, that's because Lamar doesn't give up any picks, fumbles, anything like no pick sixes are scored against the Ravens D, nothing like
yeah,
that. So
yeah,
that's all good stuff. So if the Steelers are going to win, it's going to be with their receivers and their defense and special teams. And if the Ravens are going to win, it's going to be because they broke the Steelers' defense, right? So that's
yeah.
what has to happen. It's strength versus strength in this game. So yeah, if the
Hey,
Ravens are
man,
going to beat, if the Ravens are going to
yo,
beat the Steelers,
yeah.
it's going to be they're going to break the defense. So what's the X factor in all this, right? Probably Mike
Oh,
Tomlin. Mike Tomlin.
oh,
Mike
yeah,
Tomlin,
yeah.
surprisingly, is 3-1 against Lamar in games that they've played. They've gone head to head. So
He cooks Lamar. Yeah, he knows Lamar.
Tomlin
Yeah,
seems to have figured out a way to go against what it is that Lamar does. Right, his scheming against Lamar is superior because no other team does it. No other team, no other team in the NFL has been able to do against Lamar what Tomlin and the Steelers have done.
and there's
So,
there's two teams that have destroyed Lamar, and that's the Chiefs and the Steelers. No
okay,
other
Chiefs too.
team has ever had as much success versus the Ravens, and
Yep,
especially versus Lamar, than Tomlin and Andy Reid. And I say Tomlin more because he sees him more. You know what I
yep,
mean?
yep.
Way
So,
more.
and that goes to show you just how good Lamar is. Is that like if you're going to beat Lamar, you have to out scheme him. You can't do it with
Oh
your defense. You got to do it with your coach. Your coach has to get your defense to do it for you, but he has to draw some stuff up in the sand with his finger to figure out how to do it, right? And
yeah.
so that's the X factor. So aside from the jersey, I feel like I've got the numbers and the history on
Okay.
my side to take the
Okay.
Steelers today in this matchup.
Oh, so you're like with Roberto, man. You going Steelers, man. He has Steelers +3, meaning this gonna be more than a field goal that y'all gonna get. But you know what? I'm scared of Mika Fitzpatrick. I'm scared of Joey Porter Jr. Those guys could do something because the
Yep.
last Steelers matchup, y'all had Kenny Pickett, and there was a pick at the very end. I think Joey Porter Jr. got Lamar. I'm nervous. I'm scared, but guess what?
Yeah.
I'm not scared about the lines, the starts and sets for fantasy football. I'm number one in the league. I'm trying to maintain my position. Help me out, brother.
Well,
I think Kareem has a huge matchup too. What do you
yeah,
think
he
about
does.
starting sets for
Well,
what people are doing tonight?
and unfortunately, unfortunately, the Eagles killed him, huh? They took away
Yeah,
Terry McLaurin from him. That Eagles secondary that we were talking about, they held Terry McLaurin to 1.5 fantasy points. So pretty sure Kareem isn't feeling that.
no, I
But
don't
like
think so.
that's the first time. Like that's the first time McLaurin's been shut down all year, man. McLaurin's been having a great bounce back this year in fantasy because of Jaden Daniels. But
Yes.
Philly put him on lock, man. What can I
And
tell
you know
you?
what? That's why, just as an aside, I think Philly is going to go really far this season because that defense travels. And not only does that defense travel, that DB room is night and day from last year.
Yep.
They let all kind of receivers do things to them last year. But now they have two white DBs. They're calling the Ku Klux Clamps.
Oh my God, is that what they're calling them?
They're calling them the Ku Klux Clamps, and they are so
Oh
good.
my God, yeah. Cooper DeJean is one of those. Cooper DeJean from Iowa was one of
Yes.
those guys
Yes.
That's one of the changes that they made when they came out of the break. And who was the other guy? Quinion Mitchell. I think he's a rookie.
I think it's something like Burkhead or something like that. He's one of their
Well,
safeties.
that's
He
yeah,
catches
that's the
on
other
the
white
on the on
guy.
the safety.
That's
Yeah,
the other
the
white
white
guy.
corners. They're really good.
But Quinion Mitchell
Ooh,
is a rookie. cornerback, and he's the guy who shut down who shut down McLaurin the other day. So that's like, yeah, they've got a fantastic secondary going these days. But yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny in the NFL this year, huh? Talking about
Yeah.
the cornerback position, and about it's almost like black quarterbacks 25 years ago, right? Everybody's
Yes.
talking
It's
about
crazy.
can the white guy can white guys actually play cornerback? Is that allowed? Is it? It's like hell yeah, they can. Shit.
Hell yeah. Shit. I mean,
There's another
the
guy
Eagle
too
fans are
in
happy.
there's another guy in Denver too, who's another white guy
Oh
lockdown
yeah,
corner,
there is. Yes,
right?
yes.
And it's
And
so
in
funny.
Denver, dude.
Bomani Jones had a hilarious take on that. He says all these guys usually come out of these a guy like Cooper DeJean, like they come out of Iowa, and he goes like, well, yeah, because in Iowa, like they don't like give up on playing cornerback in ninth grade, right? Because it's all it's not like
Yeah.
Atlanta or some kind of place like that where they get discouraged before they even get out there, right? But like the fact of the matter is like it's the same thing as it was with the black quarterbacks. If you decide you
Of
want to be a
course.
white cornerback, you can do it. You just have to
We
figure
can.
out the training regimen. I mean, if you have natural speed, obviously, right? You got to have some natural speed, right? You have to have some
Oh
natural
yeah.
talent. But the thing is, though, as the money goes up and up and up and up for NFL players, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
everybody says, well, I got to get that money, right? So what do I have to do
Of
to get that
course.
money? Well, everybody loves money, white or black, right? So,
Hey man, green is something you can't go races against, man. I don't think a lot of
right.
people be hating on green
So,
on the
also too,
onion.
what did I hear too? Like Derrick Henry spent $250,000 on a conditioner last year, like somebody to help him
Wow,
train. Well,
wow.
if you can do that, if you can like invest a couple $100,000 in your training every year, well, no
Mhm.
matter what your color is, if you're spending $250,000 on your training and nutrition, like chances are you're going to be a physical specimen. That's you know what I mean. Like, so I think that
So,
we've reached a
yeah.
point. I think we've just reached a point now where anybody can be whatever they want if they have some
Straight
natural
up.
ability and the resources to train because it's resources nowadays, right? It's huge.
That's a fact, man. Shout out to Sleepy Euphoria in the chat. White excellence, man. That corner is good, bro. In Denver, he's pretty good. Riley Moss, that's his name. Cooper DeJean is nice in the Eagles. Hey, man, if you can make plays, don't matter your
Yeah,
skin color, bro. Shout out to
yeah,
you.
man,
Pull up.
yeah. Well, I mean, Bomani. What else did Bomani say? It was really amusing. He says the secondary is the only place where white men in America are underrated.
It's a fact. The secondary. Shout out to, by the way, let me tell you one of my favorite corners or DBs before we get to our fantasy talk. Harrison Smith from the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah,
Playmaker, man. White safety. Really MFing good,
I'm
man.
telling you, man.
Really
I'm
great
telling
player.
you.
White boy.
Op-
Amazing.
op-
One of the best
Opportunities
safeties
are
we
opening
saw.
up for the white man.
Yes, sir. I love it. I love it.
Anyways,
How's it looking for fantasy starts and sits, brother? We
for
gotta help.
fantasy, man.
We're gonna
Well,
give
okay.
Sleepy knows too. Yeah, he's in our league. Yeah.
First thing. First
Mm,
thing is that the buys are almost done. Thank goodness. This is the second last bye week. But this week on bye, so if you got any Tampa Bay players, Carolina players, I'm the only guy with Carolina players,
yeah.
with Chuba Hubbard, Arizona, and the New York Giants. So those four teams are on bye this week. Nico Collins, we thought we were a little bit ahead of that. We thought for sure he was going to be playing last week, but he ended up not
Mm,
playing. So Nico Collins for sure is playing Monday night. All right.
yes.
So for sure. Now, the playoffs are coming up in fantasy. So this is a topic we need to discuss, right?
Yes,
Um,
sir.
Handcuffs and schedules are something that fantasy managers should keep in mind. Start taking a look at who your bench players and your starters and whatnot. If there's ever any question between the two of them, start taking a look. and also any waiver wire players you might be looking to get, start taking a look at the schedules. Who are they playing? Right? Are they? Is this a difficult schedule or an easy schedule, a mix thereof, etc.? But out of the remaining 5 or 6 games that we got left, 7 games we got left, take a look. If that guy's got 3 or 4 green light matchups, that's something to take into advantage, something to take into account, right? Especially if those are the playoff ones, the playoff weekends. So yeah, you got to be looking at a few different things when it comes to handcuffs, like especially for running backs, right? Because there really isn't anybody on running back on the waiver wires that you can grab, because running back has been such a prolific position in fantasy this year. Everybody's got them, right? Certainly in our league, anyways, right? Like there's really not. I think this week we had Ostic Estime was the only person on our waiver wire and a lot of Yahoo waiver wires who is looking to be like, he's probably going to get 20 touches, but he was on the waiver wire, right? And it wasn't because of injury or any of that type of stuff, right? So like there are very, very, very few guys out there like that. So handcuffs though, because if we get any injuries at this time, there's no recovery, right? So whoever the handcuffs are for the top 10 running backs on your, in your league, like you need to take a look at that. You need to make sure that like if you've got Josh Jacobs or what's his name, if you've got Josh Jacobs, for example, in Green Bay, you want to have Emmanuel Wilson as your backup, right? Yeah, and if you like in Minnesota, Cam Akers, another good handcuff. Tyler Algier, Jalen Wright in Minnesota. Probably more so than Raheem Mostert. Mostert looks like he's being faded a bit for some reason. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Jalen Warren in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Blake Corum for Kyron Williams. And Cordell Peterson also, because Jalen Warren actually in Pittsburgh is looking a little bit iffy too, right? So these are all guys that could get a lot of yards if Najee went down, for example. Other than that, we all know who to put in at running back. The top 25 running backs are all like balling out. So whoever your running back 1 or 2 is, just make sure you play them today, because running backs are all doing well in fantasy this year. For wide receiver, I got 3 here that would probably be good if you're looking for bye week help or if you had injuries. Jameson Williams is going against Jacksonville in Detroit today. The other one who's got a great schedule for wide receiver going down the stretch is Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs in Green Bay. I think his name is and
Green Bay.
Yeah. And he's got a great schedule. Take a look at it. It's full of green lights. And the other one who's been pretty good is in Baltimore, actually. Rashad Bateman is still on waivers in a lot of leagues. He's got 4 TDs already this year, and he's got a good floor. Yeah, there hasn't been a game where he's had less than 4 or 5 targets, right? So that's pretty good. Now, I know Zay Flowers.
By the way,
I know Zay Flowers is the big guy there, but Bateman, if you're looking for help, might help you.
One thing I want to mention before you move forward, Bateman is a big red zone target for Lamar. If you are watching games, Lamar loves looking for him in the end zone. So if you want to pick up a receiver who's going to get you some touchdowns on the back end going into the playoffs, Bateman is a fantastic choice. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, Rashad Bateman. Yeah, no, he's an excellent player. And over the middle of the field, like he's just excellent. Now in tight end, Will Dissly has a good matchup. I mean, he's not a groundbreaker by any means, one way or the other. But like I said, I'm giving you the guys who may not be on your team right now. It's somebody who you might need help with, right? So he's been getting good volume, and he's got a good matchup against Cincinnati, right? So if you need help at tight end, Dissly's available. Now, the person who definitely probably needs help is the guy who's got Kincaid and Buffalo for tight end, right? He's definitely injured this weekend. And so Dawson Knox is the pickup there if you've got Dalton Kincaid as your tight end. Now, here's the other reason. Matchups. Now, even though they're playing KC, the
Yeah.
one place where you can get fantasy points against the KC defense is the tight end position. For some
Yeah.
bizarre reason, they give up like the first or second or third most amount of points to a tight end is the KC position. So yeah, Dawson Knox in Buffalo actually looks like a sneaky pickup today in fantasy. The other one who's got a very good matchup is Tyler Conklin for the New York Jets.
Yes, sir.
He's actually been fairly productive this year, and he's looking to recess on touchdowns most likely. But he's going up against Indy today, who gives up the fourth most points, I believe it is, in fantasy to that position. In quarterback, we got some interesting stuff in quarterback. Like I said, Anthony Richardson's coming back.
Hey,
Is he going to
Rich.
be
Yeah.
better than? Is he going to be better than Flacco? What's he going to do? Right, we're not sure. But
Yeah.
if you're in a super flex or a 2 QB league, or you're looking to make some type of really, you got to make up some ground, so you need a really explosive play at a position. Richardson might end up, like I said, he might end up running for 100 yards himself.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know exactly what it's going to go through there because, they basically told the guy, sit down, watch Joe Flacco, do what he does. Only to watch Joe Flacco, not really do a whole
Pro
bunch.
picks.
So, so if you're Anthony Richardson's, I don't think you're going to be too humbled by by all that. So I have a feeling Richardson's going to ball out today, right? So
Oh, yeah.
he's going to have interceptions, he's going to have problems, right? But he's also probably going to throw like a 75-yard touchdown pass, and like I say,
Oh, yeah.
run for 70, 80 yards himself, right? That guy might
Oh,
end
yeah.
up with 3 touchdowns and a QBR number of like 50 or something. You don't know.
And the Jets defense is overrated. So guess what? They're
Way
gonna be in
overrated.
front. So guess what? He could burn some guys. By the way,
Yep.
shout out to Roberto in the chat who says Lamar will either have an interception or fumble today. That the Steelers defense are gonna be too much. Man, Roberto, you're a Steeler guy. I did not even know you was. I'm getting ambushed, bro. I'm getting ambushed by Steeler
Right.
fans today, man.
Now, on that
Yeah.
QB, right? The other one that's kind of interesting because they're going up against Cleveland is Derek Carr. Now we know that New Orleans, when they're on their game, they're explosive, right? Other
Yeah.
times they're absolutely terrible. So this game could end up being like 7-9 or something like that. It could be an absolutely brutal game that you just don't want to watch. Because the other thing too is New Orleans is going to Cleveland, playing on turf, all that type of stuff, right? But Derek Carr likes to throw it down the field, and Kamara might find himself getting some numbers. I mean, it might be an interesting game for Derek Carr today. The other one that you should be looking at is Herbert. Herbert for the Chargers in LA. That guy is looking like he's really taken off. And again, like if you're looking for somebody going down the stretch for the fantasy finals, Herbert's your guy. He's going up against Cincinnati today. So again, it's like it could be an incredible game. Also, Russell Wilson, right? We talked about that. I mean, if he puts up 30 points today, he'll have good numbers. And he's going up against that Ravens secondary, right? But also Stroud, and Stroud's going up against Dallas. So, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
Rodgers is going up against Indianapolis. Indianapolis actually gives up a fair number of points to quarterback, right? So even though I hate Rodgers and I don't trust him at all, the numbers say that he might have a big game today. So you got to keep that in mind. And defenses, Texans, Minnesota, Miami, and the LA Rams are probably your best starts today, but most of them are probably, on other teams. But on waivers, like I said, maybe New Orleans against Cleveland, and the other one is Tennessee against Minnesota. Doesn't sound natural now, does it? But except for the fact that Minnesota, because of Sam Darnoldson, right? You saw the 3 interceptions last week. Yeah. Minnesota gives up a fair number of points to defenses at the quarterback position, apparently.
Yeah, man.
Anyways, so yeah, buddy, that's fantasy for you.
I love it. I love it, man. And if anybody's winning their fantasy matchups, you better thank Unc You better come in with a super chat or something. You know what I mean? You give him some kind of love. You know what I mean? Shout out to y'all and everybody who's watching, coming in, tuning in. You better smash that like button. Share it with your auntie, your uncle, subscribe, everything else. We do this for you. We do it for the love of the game. We do it because we love football. We're obsessed. We're giving you the pre-game show of
Yeah,
the
man.
week. This is all you need, man. You grab your
Gotta
coffee
love,
and come watch Uncle Few every
gotta
Sunday
love
morning. You know
football,
what to do,
man.
bro.
Greatest game.
And we got my boy Sleepy Euphoria in the chat saying, "A Rich baby, this guy he's an Anthony Richardson truther. This guy loves A Rich." And then he says he likes the matchups that you given today, Unc. And believe I'm going against you.
Yeah,
He
he is.
could
I'm going. I think I'm going against Sleepy today.
You're going against Sleepy. It
I
should be
think
fun.
so. You
Let's
do
go.
this ish there, Mister Sleepy Euphoria.
He do that ish apparently.
Oh, dude. Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I'm just barely holding on today, man. I got both Tyrone Tracy and Chuba
Mm,
Hubbard on
what
on
a
uh,
life.
on the bench today because of the bye weeks, right? So I am just absolutely crushed at running back today. So yeah, buddy, we'll have to see how she goes.
We're gonna see
My
how it
if
goes,
if I
man.
win today, it's going to be with my wide receivers.
Let's find out, man. And you know one thing about Sleepy, man, he's low key a rich man. He better send that super chat next week. If you lose, you
Shoot.
send that super chat next week.
No kidding, huh? All
And we
right.
gotta talk. We gotta talk about the reason we're here, the reason we were in the jerseys. We gotta talk about our favorite segment, which is overtime with Unc and Few, namely the Steelers and Ravens, the best rivalry in football. I put it as the title of our show, and we gotta talk about it. Unc, without further ado, go ahead. Let's talk about this history.
Well, of course, what people have to first thing people have to understand is that the Ravens they've been AFC rivals with the Steelers going back all the way to 1970. How could that possibly be, right? Well,
Mm,
reality is that the Cleveland Browns in 1995 made the move to Baltimore because Baltimore had left Baltimore in 1983 when they moved to Indianapolis. So Memorial Stadium in Baltimore was empty, and they were looking for a team. Now, Cleveland was having problems with its stadium, Municipal Stadium in Cleveland. It was just there was just no money to be made anymore in Cleveland, and it was unfortunate for a lot of people, right? Because Cleveland was really quite outstanding in the late '80s, going into the '90s. They were really quite a good team. They'd made the playoffs several different times. I think in the I mean, I got some numbers here for you right here. Like in the '80s, with Brian Sipe and Vinny Testaverde as their franchise QBs, they won the division in '85, '86, '87, and '89. So that's four times in the '80s that they were AFC North champs, and they made the playoffs seven times in 10 years, right?
oh,
So that's obviously that's the that's the decade that the Steelers were terrible. But so anyway, so Cleveland sort of moved into that vacuum, right? So this team by 1995, because of financial difficulties, made the move to Baltimore, and they became the Ravens because they weren't allowed to take all the Browns franchise stuff. They were allowed to take.
mm,
They weren't allowed to take the records. The only thing that they were allowed to bring with them were their players, guys like Ozzie Newsome and whatnot.
mm,
So yeah. So anyways, you weren't able to. It was a weird thing. It was a franchise team, like it was a new franchise in Baltimore, basically. But
mm.
but they took all the players from Cleveland. But
Oh,
Cleveland got to keep the name, they got to keep the colors, they got to keep all the old records from the 40s and the 50s and all that type of stuff, right? So, Jim Brown's records in rushing, for example, belong to the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, not the Ravens. Get it? Sort of see how that goes. So in 1996, in 1996, the Ravens started off with a new franchise. They had Ozzie
mm,
Newsome as their general manager, and
mhm,
the same ownership and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
anyways, so when they go from there, it starts there. September 8th, 1996, the Steelers go up against the Ravens, and they beat them
Mm. Oh.
31-17. And their last meeting was on the 6th of January, 2024, and the Steelers beat
Nice.
them.
Uh-huh.
Now, in between that, the Ravens have won themselves a couple of Super Bowls. Steelers have won a Super Bowl, and they've been to another one and lost. Right, so both
Mm.
franchises have done amazingly well. Um,
Yes.
and,
Yes.
and what I like most about the Ravens is because they did used to be the Browns, and they do have Ozzie Newsome as their GM. So
Yeah.
whether it says so or not, right? The Ravens really are the Browns franchise from old. Right? They have
Yeah.
that attitude. They played all those old ancient Steelers teams from the 70s. They
Yeah.
know all the lessons of what it takes to win, and that is running downhill and defense, right?
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of love for the Ravens and the Steelers matchup because they both play the same brand of football
Yeah.
over decades. And so it's
Mm.
it's been really amazing to watch because they play such fantastic defense. Like you're never going to
Mm.
have these type of games where it's complete blowouts for a decade as one team just flops around on the ground all the time and the other team just keeps going, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that doesn't happen. So, anyways, there's about 2 or 3 different periods in this rivalry as well. There was the
Mm.
70s and the 80s, like I talked about. But then once we get going into the 90s, up until about up until about 2008, you had the first Ravens franchise experience. Now they didn't win all the time, but they did. It took them about 4 years before they got themselves their first Super Bowl in 2000 against the Giants.
Yeah.
Um, right? And so in that period, though, the Steelers ended up going to a Super Bowl in 2008, 2009. So
Yes,
the
sir.
Steelers were, yeah, so the Steelers, and also I think they 2005, 2006, they were,
Yes.
like all through the 2000s, the Steelers were doing really well, as were the Ravens. Right, so it sort
Mhm.
of peaks at about that time, and around 2009, 2010, we had our typical Ravens and Steelers splitting their games. Both teams were 9-7, but the
Yeah.
Ravens were the team that went off to the playoffs. So nothing really fantastic there. But Joe
Mm.
Flacco comes in at about this time, if I remember.
Yeah.
Um, and so Joe Flacco and Ben Roethlisberger go back and forth again, right? So overall, there's been 60
Mm.
meetings between these two teams. Steelers are up 35-25.
Yeah.
Um, and we've had a few famous games along the way, too. In
Oh yeah.
2013, at Thanksgiving, I think it was like a
Oh yeah.
22-20 game. The Ravens won on a defensive play after the Steelers tied the game, and like I guess they shut down the 2-point play. So like
Yes. Yes. This
so
one.
like
Yep.
so
I
like the
think.
Ravens and the Steelers, even when they're not like in championship levels, are still playing fantastic football against each other. Just because it's just how it's gone for almost 50 years. These two teams have really been going at it and have really got to know each other. The
Mm.
brand of football they play as a franchise, you can see it like from the bird's eye view as the years go by. So it's been an amazing rivalry between the two of them. Hines
Mm.
Ward had a great quote about it in 2006. This
Mm.
is sort of paraphrased a little bit, but check it out. Hines Ward's like, the coaches hate each other, the players hate each other, they don't like us, and we don't like them. There's no need to hide it, and we know it. It's it's black and blue, baby, and that's it,
Yeah.
man. Like these two teams really show you what the black and blue division in the AFC North is all about: running, defense,
Mm.
and offense when you need it, right? So
Oh,
like they're pretty amazing that way. There's other connections between the two of them too. Marvin Lewis, he was the first defensive coordinator for the Ravens, but Marvin
mm.
Lewis was a lines coach for the Steelers for years,
Oh.
right?
Okay.
So yeah, so like Ozzie Newsome has always known that the Steelers are, the prototype. That's who they want to be. and they've
Yeah.
managed to pull it off on. They've managed to pull it off enough. They managed to pull it off enough that there's a rivalry between the two, and it's not just a rivalry; it's almost like a rivalry of within a brand of football. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty amazing rivalry. Those two for sure.
You know, it's interesting, man. I'm gonna let it loose, man. Way before when I started getting into football, guess what was the first team I really loved the most? The
The
Steelers.
Ravens,
The
Steelers.
Steelers.
Okay,
I was a
okay.
big fan of the Steelers. When I started watching football, I was like maybe 10, 11 years old. I like that just yellow
So
and black. Jerome Bettis, I was a big fan of Jerome Bettis. And then I
right,
flipped to the other side, man. I became a
I
huge
was gonna
Ray Lewis
say
fan. I flipped, man. I flipped. I'm a
what.
turncoat, bro. I'm a
Okay, no, no,
turncoat.
no. You're still young. So what
Yeah.
caused the change, and what year did it happen?
I think this was around maybe close to 2006, 2007 when the Steelers, Jerome Bettis, Ben Roethlisberger, Heinz
We're
Ward.
going to the Super
I
Bowl.
just really like that. I like that team, man. The Troy Polamalu. I was a huge Troy Polamalu fan, and then I watched some of the games they had with the Ravens, and bro, I switched, man. I just love the Ray Lewis attitude, that
Right,
defense. For me, I was always a fan. I don't know why. Since I was younger, I wasn't a huge fan of the offensive finesse plays. I like the rough, gritty type of players, the guys that
right,
and then I switched. I switched to the Ravens, and I've been a fan ever since about 2007. Right there, and
right.
then I've been a Ravens fan ever since. And like you said, with the overtime, they had classic matchups. I remember the
Yeah,
Alon Mata games, the games with Terrell Suggs, the games
yeah.
where you had guys. They were going at like violent clashes, brother. And it
Oh,
was
dude.
because both teams, like you said in the Heinz Ward quote, they hated each other, and it
Well,
was fun to watch. You could just see
that
it.
listen, man, that
Yeah.
AFC Championship game, like
Yeah.
frig, man. Like the score doesn't tell the story. Like it was a turnover
Yes.
at the end of the game that gave it like a double-digit point spread between the two of them, right? But like that,
Mhm.
my goodness, man, that AFC Championship game, and I think it was 2008, 2009, was like that
Something
was
like
like one of
that.
the most intense football games I've ever seen in my life. Just amazing.
2008, I think Troy Polamalu had an amazing play to seal it, some kind of crazy pick.
Yeah,
But you see, you had the James Harrisons, you had Joey Porter, the older one. You had
yeah,
obviously
senior.
back in the day Ray Rice. You had guys making plays, Heinz Ward, of course. You had guys making plays. Antonio Moss, I think, was there too, man. It was fantastic. Of course, Big Ben.
Jamal
And think
Lewis.
about it like this.
Jamal
Since
Lewis. Jamal
Jamal
Lewis,
Lewis was
2,000
there too.
yards, right?
Yup, yup,
Priest
yup.
Holmes. Priest Holmes before he was
Holmes.
famous,
Yes, yes, yes.
right?
And these matchups, man, I remember since I was a kid, man. I'm like, wow, staying up watching the games. My mom's getting pissed
Yeah,
at me. Go to sleep. You have school in the morning, you know what I mean? But
right,
the,
right.
the rivalry games, man. You know what I mean? I was a big Troy Polamalu fan, man. That strong safety hitting people in the middle. And then I switched to Ed Reed, I'll be real with you. But I
Yep.
love them both. I love watching the competitive spirit of these type
But
of matchups.
well, see, and this is why I've always liked the Ravens too, right? Like Ed Reed. Ed Reed's a Miami guy, right?
Yes, sir. Mm,
Ray Lewis, Miami guy, right?
yes,
So a lot
sir.
of my favorite college players were playing for your team,
Yes,
right? So I
sir.
mean, yeah, like it's just so good, right? They're just so many good games and so many good
Mm.
teams. Like I just yeah, to me that's the brand of football that I love.
Oh man, I'm telling you right now, man. I just want to watch a good game. I just want to watch a good game. Of course, I'm cheering for my team. You cheering
Yeah.
for yours. Let me ask you this. You know what I mean? Before we finish off on overtime, Unc, what made you a Steelers fan? What led you to your inception as maybe a younger guy that led you to
Right.
saying, "Those are my
Well,
guys."
that's an interesting story. I'll tell you that. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Before but okay, when I around 1980, 79, 80, I moved down to Toronto, right?
Mm,
And yeah, I moved down to Toronto. And so anyways, I'd been living up north all that time, and up north we didn't really have cable, right? Believe it or not, right? We're talking
Mhm.
79, 80. I was a little kid, and so
Mhm.
anyways, all so in other words, all we got was like CFL games. And then
Mhm.
once the Grey Cup was finished, we would then get the NFL playoffs, right? So I'd
Mhm.
watched Denver and Dallas and 78, 77, 78, like the Orange Crush and Roger Staubach and whatnot. But
Mhm.
I didn't really pay much attention to it. But when we moved back down to Toronto, all of
Yeah.
a sudden we got cable. We got all the Buffalo stations. Now all of a sudden I'm getting all the football. But before that, what it was is my first week in class, I signed up for I signed up for flag football because I'm 12, and that's what you do back then in school, right? You play intramural flag football in the fall, right? And so, anyways, now our my homeroom teacher, the guy who ran the flag football, he was also he was an American, so he was a big American sports fan, right? And
Mhm.
so he named all the teams after NFL teams, not CFL teams. And the flag football team that I was on was the Steelers. So
Oh.
as I started watching the games, I just naturally went with the Steelers because that was my flag football team. And then we
No.
started winning all these games, right? And then I started getting into it, right? And then, of course, they won the Super Bowl that year. And so I was locked in. I was locked into the Steelers going forward, right? Because once I find a team, especially when I was young, when I find a team, that's my team. I don't change away from them, right? I'm always loyal to
Yeah.
that team. I grew
Mhm.
up a Leafs fan, right? Despite all their terrible things, I'm still a
Oh,
Leafs fan to this
I
day,
feel sorry for you, brother, but still
right?
loyal.
I,
I respect you.
I grew up loving baseball, watching the Blue Jays, right? I'll never cheer for another team besides the Blue Jays, right? If the Blue Jays aren't winning, I probably won't be watching, right? It's basically how it goes. So that's how it is with me and the Steelers, right? I started cheering for the Steelers, fell in love with the Steelers, never went away.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. We're so excited for this game. I know you and me are going to be texting throughout. Everybody, appreciate y'all for coming and tuning
You
in.
think?
You know what I mean? Overtime has been fantastic, like it always is. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. We're going to have a time. We're going to have a vibe today, bruh. It's
Heck yeah.
been Funk and Fuel, man. Cheering for our teams, bruh. And we going to have fun today, bruh.
Steelers.
We gonna have fun today. Any last words for the people?
Nah, man. Nah, man. I ain't got nothing to say, man. I'm just so into watching football today. This particular game, I think it's the 1 o'clock window too, right? So we get it right off the hop.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
dude.
1 o'clock window. Hey man, I'm gonna be sipping on something, man. I'm gonna see on something screaming at my screen, bro.
Right on, brother. This is gonna be an amazing game. It's gonna be a lot of fun, man. And we'll
Yes.
get up on it again next week.
Respect, man. It's been Unconfused, man. Episode 11. Tuning out, man. Deuces. Let's go.
One love, folks, and we'll catch y'all